Going to go over a couple of things in this particular video. I'm going to go over the interface, which we covered during class, but I'm going to go over it again here so that everybody has a better idea or can review it on their own time. We're going to talk about something called a scene tree, which is how all of the nodes are organized within the scene. We're going to talk about the inspector pane, which tells you all the things that make a particular node or thing on your screen special. That tells you all the properties of it or the values that make up that particular item. We're also going to talk about describing how each scene is composed, meaning how it's put together. So how do you have a root node, and then you've got the nodes that go within that root node, and we're going to talk about the hierarchy, or you've got the parents and the children nodes. We're also going to talk about how to reassign the script and how to assign an initial script to a node and why you would want to do that. We're also going to talk about instancing. What is instancing and how can I use it? So that's going to be the extent of this particular video. As you see, I've already got a couple others outlined. Hopefully I can get to those tonight, or at least one of them. But this first one here I think is really important to go over. So let's start. So we're going to talk about describing the interface. You can see here I've got kind of like this main window here where you get to see like a preview of your game. And in this preview you can see this purple box that outlines the extent of the camera view. So if I were to run this, it starts out following in that exact spot, and as you see I've got a camera associated with this particular little guy. So as I run around, now it follows him. Okay, so I'm going to go and close this. The next thing I'm going to start on the top left over here. So you have this, which is just your resources. This is your file structure for your project. So it starts out, everything's going to be collapsed. So we've got this RES, that stands for resources, and this is kind of like the folder that contains everything for your game. When you import this game into Godot, it's going to start out with an empty folder, or when you create a new one, and then as you add things to that folder, it builds up the things that you'll see here. So if I go ahead and you see I've got this base root node here selected, and over here I can see a whole bunch. I can see a scene, a coin silver scene, which is this guy here. I've got enemy1.gd, that's a script that gives a brain to this little guy. I've got enemy1.scene, which is the scene that describes what that little guy looks like. I've got a gate, which I haven't done much with, but that's this, and a key, which is here. So you can see I've got a lot of the elements of this scene are right here in the root, but what about where are the pictures? So if I go to the assets folder here, I go to ping, that's PNG. It's just a file type that's used for storing pictures. And then I wanted to, let's say, look at enemies. So I'll select this. And you can see right here in the bottom, this is where you actually get a preview of the contents of that particular folder. So it lets you easily select it. What's really cool is in the newer versions of Godot, you can actually drag something out onto there. And notice it said here, no parent to instance a child at. Now, I'm like, okay, frowny face, why did that happen? And what it was I tried to drag that on there, but I don't have a parent node selected, so it didn't know who to assign this to. So first I'm going to select this root node here, node 2D. I'm going to select that in the scene graph on the right here, which I'll tell you about that in just a second. So we go to the node 2D, select it, and now when I drag this out here, you'll notice it just dragged it right on. No big deal. And you'll notice it added a sprite called flyman_fly, which happens to be the name of that image. And now if I were to go ahead and run this, you'll notice that guy just sits there, because all it is a picture. So in that way you can add pictures, and notice I can jump behind it, and you're like, well, what if I wanted you to be jumping in front of it? Now I'm going to get to the scene graph. So this tells you the order that things are drawn in. All right. So the closer you are to the top, the drawing starts at the top and goes towards the bottom. So this will be drawn first. That's the tile map. So the tile map's always going to be behind my player. And if I wanted to have certain objects in front of my player, I could have another tile map. If you wanted to have something in front of the player, then you would have another tile map right here, and then you'd be able to add things to it, and then as your player walks around, those things would be in front of the player, and the other things that were above it would be behind the player. Okay, so this is called your root node. Your root node is the parent for all nodes that are below it. So I had to select that before I could drag a sprite into the scene. The next one you see here is a tile map, And it's just a type of a node. It's a special type of a node which gives you a lot of different functionality so that you can create this game scene here. The next one is coin silver. That's just a node that I made, and I'll show you how that works. This is, notice how it says instance of a resource coinsilver.tscn. Now, an instance means that I've defined another node, and I've given it a whole bunch of different things. It's got its own scene, and I've created an instance of that scene in this one, and that's how you can compose scenes of many complicated objects into a complicated scene, and it'll all work together to make this game scene. Alright, so the next one we have here is the player character adventure. So this guy is just your player character. Now he's got a script associated with it, as you can see right here. And if I click on that, then I go to the script that is controlling this particular character. Now, you may have noticed up here I just clicked 2D and script. Those will take me back and forth between the scripting editor and the 2D scene editor. If you click 3D, you're not going to see much because we are not working in 3D. We don't have any 3D assets added yet, so it's not going to work. Alright, that's about all that I have to describe here. So the next scene is, notice when I select this root node, it has in the inspector down here, so remember I told you about the inspector initially, is what describes all of the objects. Okay, so a node 2D is always going to have a position within the world and a rotation, and it's also going to have a scale, and there's a couple of other things that you're not going to really mess with much. So let's look at this sprite, because a sprite is a node 2D, but it's a special node 2D, which, notice how here it is, it's a node 2D, it has all of those things, but it also, as a sprite, it has to have a texture, so a picture that it's drawing on the screen. And it also has, whether it's flipped vertically or not, so you can do some fun stuff with that, and you don't have to have multiple images, you can just flip it. You can also do fun stuff with scaling and things like that with that. You can also change its color if you'd like to. So now he's an angry flying man. But white will always just be like the default modulation on the color. To modulate just means to like change in this case. Alright, so let's just review. I think I've gone over... So I haven't shown you guys yet how to reassign a script, and I haven't shown you how to instance something. So let's take this character here, and if I wanted to, and I scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a spot right here where it says script. Now I can take this and I can select and I can say load, and I can select any script I want. Now if I were to select enemy1.gd, this guy will behave very differently. Now I'm going to do that just for the sake of this, but you're gonna see some strange behavior. So now my guy is just flying to the west. He's going left. Now, that's not the desired behavior for a player character, so I'm going to go ahead and reload the player character adventure.gd. So I'm going to open that up, and let's make sure that that's the one. It looks like that wasn't it. It was player controller. I renamed it, and I forgot because I'm silly. So I'm going to go ahead and do that one more time. Only this time I'm going to load the right script, playercontroller.gd, and if I run again, see, I think I know what I'm doing, but even I make mistakes. So why is that happening? Let's find out. How strange. Let's go in and see what that is. Oh, see, that isn't it either. Where's this guy? Playercontroller.gd. I must have loaded the wrong one again. Huh. There it is. Ha! I'm so silly. Okay, I found it. So we've got playercontroller.gd. Now it's going to the right one. This is fantastic. And if I am to run this again, now I've got a guy that's behaving like it should. I can run, I can jump, I can slide, I can jump and I can kick. Okay, so he's got all kinds of cool abilities now. Ha! He can kneel down, jump and slide. Very cool. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close that. And now you've seen, even I have to try sometimes to figure out what I'm doing wrong, and that's part of the fun of doing this. Alright, so I'm going to go and close out this video. I hope it helps you guys. If you have any more questions, please post it into Slack, and I will help you resolve any of the issues that you have. I realized that I forgot to tell you guys about instancing, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So instancing is when you take a node or another scene that you've created and you add it to a scene that you're working on. So in this case, I'm working on the level scene, and let's say I want to add another coin. So I've got this one coin here, and one easy way of doing this, if you already have a copy of it in there, is to just select it, and you can either right click and go down to duplicate, or you can hit Control D. I'm going to do Control D. Now I've got another coin. I want to move that second coin. I'm going to go ahead and put it up here. Alright, so now I've just instanced another coin into the scene. What if you don't have a copy of it in there yet? And so I'm going to go ahead and delete this guy. I'm going to go ahead and delete this guy too. Now I have no coins, and I want to add a coin. So what I can do is I can select my root node, and I can say instance a child scene. And then I can select the coin silver scene, because that's the one I want to add. And I open, and now I've got a copy of a coin in my scene. Now notice how this coin is a lot bigger than the coin that you saw before. So remember how I told you that nodes all come from a node 2D, and they all have certain things. One of those things is scale. So I can take this and I can make it 0.5 and 0.5, and when I do that, now I've got a little coin that's half the size. So that's how you can modify the properties of it. I'm going to jump up there and show you that that coin currently does nothing. But it is in front of my character now because it's later in the scene graph than my player character is. Alright, so I'll close that out and end this recording.